the mockery. The galactic assembly station floated in the neutral zone between three star systems, a massive ring structure that sparkled against the darkness of space. Inside its grand chamber, representatives from 62 civilizations gathered around a holographic star map that displayed the growing threat. Red markers spread across the outer territories like a disease, each one representing a world lost to the Vorthon dominion. Ambassador Krextal of the Zalathi stood at the center, his crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns as he spoke. The Vorthons had taken 17 systems in just 2 cycles, and their hunger for conquest showed no signs of slowing. Every species needed to contribute their finest vessels to the combined fleet, or they would all fall separately. One by one, the representatives stepped forward to showcase their contributions. The Aquari displayed their bioships, living vessels that could heal themselves and adapt to any environment. Their hulls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and their weapons were grown rather than built. The delegates murmured appreciatively as the specifications scrolled past, showing regeneration rates and adaptive capabilities that defied conventional engineering. The mechanoids presented their drone carriers next. Each ship was essentially a mobile factory that could produce thousands of fighter drones in the middle of battle. Their motherships gleamed with chrome perfection, every surface calculated for maximum efficiency. No crew was needed. Artificial intelligence controlled everything with precision that organic minds could never match. The Etherians floated forward, their gaseous forms contained in environmental suits. They offered their phase ships, vessels that could slip partially out of reality to avoid damage. The technology was so advanced that most species couldn't even understand the mathematics behind it. The ships appeared as ghostly outlines in the hologram, seeming to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then came humanity's turn. Captain Marcus Stone walked into the chamber with measured steps. He was a man in his 50s, gray streaking through his black hair, wearing a simple Navy uniform with minimal decoration. Behind him walked Commander Lisa Park and Chief Engineer Pavel Volkov, both carrying themselves with quiet confidence that seemed out of place among the exotic aliens. Stone activated his holographic projector, and the image of humanity's contribution appeared above the assembly. The USS Perseverance materialized in blue light, and the chamber fell into stunned silence. The ship looked like something from a museum. Its hull was angular and blocky, covered in thick armor plates held together by visible welds. Weapon turrets dotted its surface like blisters, actual rotating guns that looked mechanical rather than energy-based. The engines were massive cylinders attached to the rear, without any of the elegant integration that modern ships displayed. A chittering laugh broke the silence. It came from the insectoid hivers, and soon others joined in. The musical tones of the Etherians mixed with the rumbling chuckles of the stone-like granites. Even the usually diplomatic Zalathi couldn't hide their amusement. Ambassador Krextal raised a crystalline hand for order, though his own form sparkled with what might have been suppressed laughter. Captain Stone, surely this is some kind of error in your projection system. This vessel appears to be several centuries out of date. Stone remained calm, his face betraying no emotion. The Perseverance was commissioned 312 years ago. She has served humanity faithfully ever since. The Aquari representative's tendrils waved in disbelief. You bring a 3-century-old relic to face the most dangerous threat our galaxy has seen? This ship still uses projectile weapons. I can see the ammunition magazines in the scan. Correct, Stone replied evenly. Kinetic weapons, 24 main guns firing tungsten core rounds at 30% light speed, 800-point defense turrets for smaller threats. The mechanoid delegate's artificial voice crackled through the chamber. Analysis indicates zero energy shielding. Hull composition is primitive steel titanium composite with ceramic layers. Survival probability against Vorthon plasma weapons, negligible. Chief Engineer Volkov stepped forward, his thick Russian accent carrying across the chamber. With respect, your analysis assumes the ship will simply sit there and take hits. The Perseverance was built to move, to dodge, and when she does get hit, to keep fighting anyway. The laughter returned, louder this time. The Etherians' representative spoke in their whistling language, translated instantly by the station's systems. Movement is irrelevant when facing weapons that travel at light speed. Your ship would be vaporized before your primitive sensors even detected the attack. Commander Park finally spoke up, her voice cutting through the mockery. Every ship here is a masterpiece of engineering. Beautiful, elegant, perfect. But what happens when that perfection faces something unexpected? What happens when your systems are compromised, when your shields fail, when your AI is corrupted? The chamber quieted slightly. Park continued, her voice gaining strength. The Perseverance wasn't built to be perfect. She was built to be unbreakable. Every system has manual overrides. Every section can operate independently. If you destroy half the ship, the other half keeps fighting. If you knock out our computers, we have trained crew who can operate everything by hand. Krextal's form shifted colors, a sign of deep thought. Even if what you say is true, the technological gap is insurmountable. The Vorthans use quantum torpedoes, dimensional shields, and weapons we're still trying to understand. Your ship would be like a wooden sailing vessel facing a modern destroyer. Stone walked closer to the hologram of his ship, running his hand through the light. Ambassador, let me tell you how the Perseverance was built. Not in an orbital shipyard with robots and fabrication beams, but in the Armstrong yards on Earth's moon. 10,000 workers, 3 shifts a day for 5 years. Every rivet was placed by human hands. Every weld was inspected by human eyes. Every system was tested not by computers, but by people who would trust their lives to it. The captain turned to face the assembly. You build ships with the assumption that everything will work as designed. We build ships with the assumption that everything will go wrong. Your vessels are optimized for victory. Ours is optimized for survival. There's a difference. The mechanoid delegate spoke again. Historical data shows that technological superiority has determined the outcome of 97.3% of all recorded space battles. Your philosophy is admirable but ultimately futile. Stone smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. That leaves 2.7% where something else mattered. In our experience, that something else is usually the refusal to give up. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Krextal spoke. Very well, Captain Stone. The Perseverance will be accepted into the fleet. However, for your crew's safety, you will maintain a support position at the rear of our formation. We accept, Stone replied simply. As the assembly dispersed, various delegates continued to whisper and gesture toward the hologram of the human ship. Some shook their heads in pity, others in disbelief that humanity would send such an obsolete vessel. The Aquari representative slithered past Stone, pausing to speak. Captain, I respect your species' courage, but courage without proper tools is just elaborate suicide. When the battle comes, stay behind our bioships. We'll try to protect you. Stone watched the alien move away, then turned to his officers. Park was clenching her fists, clearly frustrated by the condescension. Volkov looked thoughtful, already running calculations in his head. They don't understand, Park muttered. No, Stone agreed, but they will. Back on the Perseverance, the crew prepared for battle with the same methods their predecessors had used for 3 centuries. In the gun batteries, teams practiced loading drills, their movements precise and coordinated. Each loader knew exactly how long they had between shots, exactly how much each shell weighed, exactly how the mechanism felt when operating perfectly. In engineering, teams checked every valve, every pipe, every connection. They used handheld scanners, but more importantly, they used their senses. They listened for sounds that didn't belong, felt for vibrations that were off rhythm, smelled for the faint odor of overheating components. The ship itself seemed to respond to the preparation. The old hull creaked and groaned as it always had, but to the trained ears of the crew it sounded ready. The engines hummed with a deep bass note that younger ships with their high-efficiency drives could never match. In his quarters, Stone looked at the fleet formation on his display. 61 modern marvels of engineering surrounded his ancient vessel. They gleamed with shields and bristled with weapons that could crack moons. The Perseverance looked like a rough iron nail among polished jewels. He thought about the philosophy behind his ship's construction. Humanity had reached for the stars not with breakthrough technology, but with determination and steel. While other species had discovered elegant solutions to faster-than-light travel, humans had basically strapped themselves to controlled explosions and refused to let physics tell them what was impossible. The Perseverance embodied that philosophy. She was not elegant or efficient. She was not beautiful or advanced. She was simply too stubborn to die. The Reckoning. The Vorthan fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic hornets, their ships seeming to bend reality around them. 50 vessels, each one sleek and predatory, arranged in a formation that defied conventional three-dimensional thinking. They moved in patterns that hurt to watch, sliding through space in ways that normal matter shouldn't. On the bridge of the Coalition flagship, Ambassador Krextal coordinated the response. All vessels engage predetermined targets. Initialize shields to maximum. Weapons free. The space between the two fleets erupted in a light show that would have been beautiful if it weren't so deadly. Beams of pure energy crossed the void. Quantum torpedoes phased in and out of reality, and fighters swarmed like angry insects. The Aquari bioships released clouds of organic interceptors that moved with living intelligence. The mechanoid carriers deployed their drone swarms, filling space with thousands of tiny fighters. For the first 10 minutes, everything went according to plan. The Coalition's superior numbers and coordinated tactics seemed to be working. 3 Vorthon ships were destroyed in spectacular explosions that briefly outshone the local star. Then the Vorthons adapted. Their ships began to pulse with a strange energy field that none of the Coalition sensors could properly read. When the Etherian phase ships tried to slip into their alternate dimension, they found it already occupied by Vorthon vessels. The bioship's regeneration stopped working as some kind of virus attacked their organic systems. The mechanoid drones began turning on each other as their control signals were hijacked. Captain Stone watched from the Perseverance's bridge as the battle turned into chaos. The technological superiority that everyone had counted on was being turned against them. Commander Park stood beside him, her face grim. "They're using our own systems against us. The more advanced the ship, the more vulnerabilities they're finding." Stone nodded, then turned to his weapons officer. "Begin long-range bombardment. Target the Vorthon vessel harassing the Aquari flagship." "Sir, at this range, it will take our shells nearly 30 seconds to reach the target. They'll see them coming. Then they'll have something to think about for 30 seconds. Fire." The Perseverance's main guns roared in silence, massive tungsten rounds accelerating down electromagnetic rails and launching into space. The ship actually moved backward from the recoil, something that would have been impossible with energy weapons. The Vorthon ship detected the incoming projectiles and moved to evade, its attention momentarily diverted from the Aquari bioship. In that moment, the bioship managed to launch a spread of organic torpedoes. The Vorthon vessel, caught between 2 threats, took hits from both. Its shields flickered and failed. On the Coalition command channel, Krextal's voice carried surprise. "Perseverance, your attack actually worked." "How?" Stone replied while watching his gunners reload. "Physics, Ambassador. They can dodge energy that travels at light speed because they can predict where we're aiming. But once our shells are in flight, they're just dumb metal following Newton's laws. The Vorthons have to actually move to avoid them." The battle continued to deteriorate for the Coalition. The Etherian phase ships were trapped between dimensions, taking damage in both. Several mechanoid carriers self-destructed as their AIs were corrupted beyond recovery. The advanced shields that everyone had relied on were failing, as the Vorthons found frequencies that passed right through them. The Perseverance moved forward, its ancient engines straining. Where the other ships tried to maintain distance and fight with long-range weapons, the human vessel closed in. Vorthon energy beams scorched its hull, leaving deep gouges in the armor, but the ship kept coming. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone reported. "Seal it and reroute," Stone commanded. All hands were going to close quarters. "Prepare for rapid maneuvering." The Perseverance accelerated toward a cluster of 3 Vorthon ships that were systematically destroying a Zalathi cruiser. As it approached, every point defense turret on the human ship opened fire, not with sophisticated energy beams or smart missiles, but with simple high-velocity bullets. Thousands upon thousands of rounds filled space like a deadly hailstorm. The Vorthon shields, calibrated for energy weapons, offered little resistance to the primitive kinetic assault. The rounds peppered their hulls, destroying sensor arrays, weapon ports, and engine nozzles. It wasn't enough to destroy the ships, but it was enough to blind and cripple them. The Zalathi cruiser, suddenly free from attack, managed to escape. Krextal's voice came over the communication system, tinged with disbelief. "Perseverance, you're taking heavy damage. Your armor is failing." Volkov's voice answered from engineering. "Armor is working exactly as designed, Ambassador. We have 2 meters of it. They've burned through 1/2 meter. We can do this all day." The battle reached its crucial moment when the Vorthon command ship revealed its primary weapon. A massive cannon emerged from its hull, charging with energy that made every sensor in the fleet scream warnings. It fired at the Coalition flagship, and Krextal's vessel simply ceased to exist, dissolved at the molecular level. The Coalition began to panic. Ships broke formation, trying to escape. The carefully coordinated battle plan fell apart completely. In the chaos, the Perseverance did something unexpected. It rammed the Vorthon command ship. Not a glancing blow or an accident, but a deliberate, full-speed collision. The Perseverance's reinforced prow, designed for exactly this purpose, punched through the Vorthon shields like they were tissue paper. The two ships ground against each other, metal screaming and tearing. "All boarding teams, go, go, go," Stone commanded. Across the Perseverance, airlocks opened and humans in armored suits poured out. They didn't have personal shields or energy weapons. They had magnetic boots, cutting torches, and projectile rifles. They swarmed over the Vorthon ship's hull like ants, forcing their way inside through every breach and airlock. The Vorthons, for all their advanced technology, had never experienced this kind of warfare. Their ships were designed for long-range combat, for elegant solutions and technological superiority. They weren't prepared for humans with crowbars and determination. Inside the Vorthon command ship, the boarding teams found technology they couldn't understand and didn't try to. They simply destroyed everything that looked important. When they found the main reactor, they didn't attempt to hack it or shut it down properly. They packed it with old-fashioned chemical explosives and ran. The explosion that followed took out not just the command ship, but two other Vorthon vessels that were too close. The Perseverance, still grinding against its victim, was thrown clear by the blast. Half its hull was gone. 2 of its 3 engines were dead, but it was still fighting. The loss of their command ship broke the Vorthon fleet. They began to retreat, their coordinated attacks falling apart. The Coalition ships that were still functional pressed the advantage, and within an hour the battle was over. In the aftermath, as rescue ships collected survivors and damage was assessed, the USS Perseverance drifted in space. It looked like scrap metal, barely holding together. 2/3 of its armor was gone. Entire sections were open to vacuum and fires still burned in some compartments. But it was still there. Still functional. Still ready to fight if needed. The surviving Coalition delegates gathered via hologram, their numbers reduced by half. The Aquari representative spoke first, his bioship regenerating from massive damage. "Captain Stone, I owe you an apology. We mocked your ship for being primitive, but it was your primitive methods that saved us." Stone, his uniform torn and burned, his face bearing fresh cuts from the battle, managed a tired smile. "Not primitive, Ambassador, just different. You built ships to win battles. We built a ship to survive them. Sometimes surviving is winning." The new Zalathi representative, Krextal's successor, added her thoughts. "The Vorthons adapted to all our advanced technology, found ways to counter everything we had, but they couldn't adapt to your simple refusal to stop fighting." Chief Engineer Volkov spoke up from the engineering section, where he was personally welding a critical support beam. His like old Earth saying, "You can't hack a hammer. You can't corrupt a wrench. Sometimes simple tools are best tools." Commander Park, coordinating repair teams throughout the ship, added her own observation. "Every one of our sophisticated systems would have failed after taking the damage we took. But mechanical systems, manual backups, and trained crew, those keep working until the laws of physics say otherwise." The mechanoid delegate, one of the few whose carrier had survived, processed this information. Proposal: all future Coalition vessels should incorporate human design philosophy, redundancy over efficiency, durability over elegance, manual backups for all critical systems. The Etherians agreed, their melodious voices carrying new respect. "We spent so much time advancing our technology that we forgot the fundamentals." The humans never forgot. They built upon basics, made them stronger instead of replacing them. As the Coalition fleet limped back toward the assembly station, the Perseverance led the way. Not because it was the fastest or the strongest, but because despite everything it could still navigate. Its ancient navigation systems, with physical gyroscopes and star charts, had survived when quantum navigation had failed. The story of the battle spread throughout the galaxy faster than light. The mighty fleets with their perfect technology had struggled, but the ancient human warship had charged in with guns blazing and crew determined. It had taken unimaginable damage and kept fighting. It had used tactics that hadn't been seen in centuries and made them work. Shipyards across dozens of worlds began incorporating human design principles. Manual overrides became standard. Physical armor supplemented energy shields. Crews trained in basic repair and operation without computer assistance. But more than the technology, it was the philosophy that spread. The idea that sometimes the best solution wasn't the most elegant or advanced. Sometimes it was the solution that refused to fail, that kept working when everything else stopped, that survived through sheer determination. The Perseverance was rebuilt, its ancient hull patched with metal from dozens of worlds, each species contributing something to honor the ship that had saved them. It became a symbol not just of human engineering, but of the value of different approaches, of the strength in what others might call primitive. Captain Stone, standing on his restored bridge, looked at the memorial plaque that had been added by the grateful coalition. It bore the names of every crew member who had died in the battle, and below them a simple phrase in dozens of languages. They built to last. Park stood beside him, watching the stars through the view screen. Think they understand now, Captain? Really understand? Stone considered the question. They understand that sometimes the old ways work. That's enough for now. But humans, we've always understood something more. It's not about the ship or the technology. It's about the refusal to give up. That's what we really forge into our ships. Not just metal and systems, but will. The Perseverance continued its patrol, an ancient guardian among modern marvels. It had proven that in the vast darkness of space, where impossible enemies and unthinkable challenges waited, sometimes the best weapon wasn't the newest or the most advanced. Sometimes it was simply the one too stubborn to break. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. They had laughed at humanity's ancient warship, mocked its primitive systems and outdated design. But when the crisis came, when advanced technology failed and sophisticated systems were turned against them, it was that ancient ship and its stubborn crew that had shown them the way. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the oldest human tradition of all, the simple refusal to accept defeat. The Perseverance sailed on, ready for whatever the universe might throw at it next. Because that's what humanity did. They endured, they survived. And when everyone else had given up, they kept fighting.